Alright, so it's late at night, sitting alone in my room. I'm thinking about making this video. Beware, it's not scripted. I'm just going to be rambling on here for a bit about one of my favorite CRPGs, Morrowind. So, I have a lot I want to say about this. Basically, my question is, will we ever see a game like Morrowind again? And what I mean by that is, in Morrowind, and this has been covered by some YouTubers, but in the sequels to Morrowind, including Skyrim, they didn't really have the same depth of lore, world building, the uniqueness, the history. Basically, in Morrowind, it took a bunch of insane people and they just crammed so much stuff into the game. So much stuff that you may not see, the typical player may not see in a first run, not even see in a second, a third run. I mean, there's stuff in that game you won't see. I'm still finding new things in the game in 2018. There's just so much stuff in that game. Whether it's written books, lore, unique NPCs, legendary items, caves to explore, unique little one-time items and things like that. But will there ever be a game like that again? So that's my question. I think today developers, they don't want to put content where people probably aren't going to see it on a first run. You've heard of the trend of developers kind of front-loading games now to try to get that initial first few hours positive, get the positive review and that sort of thing. But who could possibly make a game where you're not going to see even 25% really of the content in the game on a first run? Who's going to make a game like this? If someone does, I think it's going to be some really insane little indie team that kind of groups up, maybe some modders, or they just group up and make a game, and they kind of just leave their families for like 3 years and just work 14 hours a day on this thing just to make it crazy and just dump everything into it. But because I don't think most indie devs are going to be able to handle something so ambitious, and most AA devs or AAA devs, they wouldn't even bother with this sort of thing. But I'm still kind of waiting on the spiritual successor to Morrowind. It hasn't really come yet. See, in Morrowind, it's such an organic experience because they dump you in the world. There's no quest markers. You have to go around actually talking to people. You don't know who gives quests. There's NPCs everywhere. You find little things with each character. Everyone says the dialogue is copy pasted, and there is a lot of that too, but you also find little unique things. Scouts who will tell you about the different land masses in the world and what the Bitter Coast is like and what mushrooms grow there. And you can go there and see the mushrooms growing there. Or they tell you what flora and fauna grows in the Malag Amur region. And you get all this information and you can just talk to characters just endlessly and find out these little bits of lore and world history about the local religion, about the local politics with the Imperials moving in, and you can see it built into the world, and how the Telvanni, everyone mentions the giant mushrooms and how the Telvanni live in these mushrooms where you have to levitate to get to them, and there's just so much depth within that. Not just levitating to see a Telvanni, but with that comes a sort of world building in and of itself. They feel they're above normal people. Like, you have to levitate just to have an audience with me. That's how the Telvanni think. They're very crazy like that. But there's so much of that type of thing in the game. I mean, you can write a thesis on Morrowind. I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube videos on here much better than mine that go into greater detail. But my question is, will that ever be done again? I hope so. I hope, someone is just ambitious enough to write all that lore and kind of just cram even Ken Rolston said they crammed way too much stuff into that game. Like, they overdid it. And it's clear because you'll see things in that game that just, there's a sense that when you find things in the game that you may be the only one who have found that thing. And that's something that's missing in modern games too. Of course, I'm talking about back when the first game first came out. Of course, everyone's pretty much found, 99% of stuff in Morrowind or whatever, all the secret little things they hid. You can go on the internet and look that up. But when the game first came out, you had the feeling like, wow, I'm in this corner of the world, and this local told me of a dreg nest nearby. Watch out in the waters for dreg, and you're exploring around, and oh my gosh, there's a dreg nest. You found it 20 minutes later as you're randomly exploring, and you dive under the water and get the pearls or what have you. But sometimes in the game you would feel like, am I the only one who found this? And you might went on the internet back then and typed like, hey guys, did you know about this? Did you know about this secret up here? If you levitate above this ship, there's a weird mask up here. And it's like, there were so many secrets in the game that normal players just, if they didn't have the internet and looking things up, and you just plopped like a 2018 Morrowind in front of them, and they just played it, like, there's so much they wouldn't even see, find, even know existed in the game. So there's so much of that. There's whole quest lines, and to find even the Imperial Cult or the Morag Tong, these are hidden in corners and reaches of the world where you really have to explore and find. You can explore the Vivek cantons for endless amounts of hours and just find people selling wares, little goods, and of course every item is interactable in the world, and you just see all of this in the game. I don't even know how they did it to this day. You can see them laid out with the items they're selling, and you can sell someone a nice robe and they'll put it on right in front of you. They're like, wow, this is nice, I'm going to wear this. Or you sell them a pair of Cuirass or something, and they go, oh, this is nice, and they put it right on. It's better than what they were wearing. All these little things like that. Even little things like down to Revere's magical Daedric enchanted items, which are kind of like pawned off Daedric items, but they kind of give you a little bit of a taste of a Daedric weapon. And so many little things that if you don't ask around and talk to the people, you wouldn't even get the reference or even understand what you're looking at. The fact that you can sell Revere moon sugar, and he's a Khajiit, and he has no problem with the moon sugar in your inventory, yet other traders will tell you to drop it first because they don't deal with drug dealers and this sort of thing. All these little details. The game is just jam-packed with these little details. And modern games are great. I enjoy a lot of modern RPGs. I enjoyed Oblivion. I thought it was a fun game. I enjoyed Skyrim a lot. But they really don't feel like follow-ups to Morrowind. They feel like action games in first-person view and somewhat similar to Morrowind. But in terms of the lore, the depth, the richness, the hidden details, there's a lot less of that in Oblivion and Skyrim, but there is more than a lot of people give credit for. In Oblivion, you'll find a lot of little details too, same in Skyrim, but it's just, I don't want to say it's not the same and make it sound like this is just nostalgia speaking, but in Morrowind you had the open cities. You just walk right into the city, and the cities were bigger. Balmora was big, and each NPC had their own house, and some of them were trainers. You had to find some secret master trainers who could train your skill to 100 if you had the proper stats for it. And to find them, you may have asked about a little advice in one little town, and they may just give you some information that, oh yeah, if you track down this guy, he knows a lot about athletics. Go talk to him. And there was no quest markers. There was a journal that you could reference. You kind of made mental notes. It would probably even be better to have a pen and paper nearby to jot down notes like this. And all of that just giant mess of details and spell making and enchanting and alchemy and all this stuff just added to an extremely deep, rich, unique world. Besides just the giant mushrooms, there was the hill lands, there was the lava flow areas, Red Mountain, which itself has a lot of lore, and the Ghost Gate, and all these crazy ideas that make Oblivion and Skyrim kind of pale in comparison and look not generic but look simpler. There's no Ghost Gate in Skyrim. There's no Red Mountain. It's just a different vibe, and Morrowind was a lot slower paced, of course, because it's an older game. And I think Bethesda, they took Morrowind and they just started adding faster mechanics, more action oriented. Let's get rid of some of this lore and world building and let's focus on the combat. Let's focus on, cool dragons. Let's focus on these big, epic moments, rather than the kind of figure it out yourself approach of Morrowind, which just dumps you onto the island of Vardenfell and just says, good luck, make your way, figure it out. Even one of the main quest givers, when you do find them, and if you don't know anything about Morrowind, you'll have to track them down. You ask around. You say, do you know this guy? You go to the town he's in. You have to ask people, where's this guy? And he says, oh yeah, his house is up there on the left. Go up the steps, first house on the left, you can't miss it. Whatever. It's like, but you actually have to do that. And you get the directions and you find him. And even he tells you, he goes, look, here's some trainers that can help you. You should probably join a guild, get your feet wet on the island. And even the main quest giver tells you, come back later. Go, in other words, level up. But go explore, go learn about the world. Go do things, get stronger. And once you're prepared, then come back. But it's not some kind of gamey trick. You could still do his quest. You could still accept it. No big box pops up and says, you must be level 5 to accept this quest. Nothing like that. He just tells you that you should probably do this. And it's that sort of organic experience that, I think there's a market for. And it's not going to be found in the AA developers or AA or AAA. They're not going to bother with this sort of thing, but I think it's going to take just some diehard fan of Morrowind and the way that world was built and some friends to kind of form a team that could somehow crack the magic of Morrowind. All the legendary items are there from the start of the game. There's no mechanics that are, that gate the items. There's hard encounters. You may try, you may even know where a legendary item is. You've heard someone over talk about it. Oh yeah, if you go here, you may find this. And you go there and the enemies are just too strong for you and kill you. So they gate the items in that way, but you can stumble upon all sorts of things. The Mentor's Ring, where a random villager in Satanin will just tell you, can you believe someone lost the Mentor's Ring in a tomb on the Bitter Coast? And you're just exploring. It doesn't update your journal. It doesn't put an exclamation point on the map or a breadcrumb trail or something. You just hear this and you go, that's interesting. And then you're exploring the Bitter Coast and go, oh, here's the tomb. There's a lot of tombs, but here's one. Let's go check this out. You fight through some stuff and oh my gosh, there's the Mentor's Ring. And it's this really powerful ring that you're going to wear for a long time. And you could find it right there. If you know where to look or if you get lucky in your searches. And you've talked to people and stuff like this. So it's just a game like no other, and I'm still waiting for a real spiritual successor. So will we ever see a game like that again? That just drops you in a fantasy world and says good luck. You have to talk to the people, you have to figure your way out, figure your way around things. I don't know if we will. I hope we do. But the level of detail and richness in Morrowind, in my opinion, is still unmatched, even today in 2018, because the companies go a different way. They go towards the profits, they go towards the bigger, epic moments, and they go less from the kind of organic, detail-rich little details that most people won't see anyway. So they don't figure to put them in the game because, well, you're not going to see them unless you're really observant, unless you really dig in and immerse yourself in the game. So a lot of little details go missed, but I think there's a market for it. I think if this game came out today, there would be people praising it, just like Pathfinder Kingmaker just came out, and it's got mixed reviews on Steam, but the people who love it really love it. They're saying it's the best spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate, and this game kind of came out of the blue on Kickstarter, and wow, all of a sudden, it comes out and it's literally the best CRPG since Baldur's Gate. For me and for many others, it's a true spiritual successor. So I'm waiting for that spiritual successor to Morrowind. I hope it comes. I don't want to be the one to make it. I don't know anything about game creation. I can't use any tools. I don't know what I'm doing. I've downloaded design documents before. I've toyed around with them, but I'm probably not going to make it or try to. So I hope someone else does, because I think people would go nuts over it if it actually dropped today, just like they did for Pathfinder Kingmaker, sort of out of the blue, like, whoa, here's this pen and paper RPG again, and wow, where did this come from? And all of a sudden, pen and paper RPG, and it sells well, and it's a success for Owlcat. And Morrowind was very much a pen and paper RPG. I actually think they should do a real-time with pause Morrowind successor, so you'd have either 3 or 6 second rounds or a 4-second round, like the Baldur's Gate games, like Neverwinter Nights, but you're in first person, and that way you can use more of the spell making and the spell schools. There's so many spells in the game, but unfortunately in Morrowind the combat is over before you get a chance to really use them and dip in. So it'd be cool if there was a way to pause the game, select your next attack, not turn-based, but real time with pause in the first-person view. So I think that would be really cool and a big improvement to Morrowind combat. But I'd still want it to be based on dice rolls. You can't just put a pause feature in the current Morrowind, because that would be ridiculous. 6-second rounds and you add a pause and it takes 20 minutes to kill a mud crab. So it'd have to be obviously built from the ground up. But I think that would be a big improvement on it and give you a chance to use some of those spells, use some of the spells you made. You can create all sorts of unique spells in the game and use the lesser used spells that are still useful, but you just don't really get a chance to cast them in combat unless you're quick with your fingers and kind of running around and this sort of thing. But they should really do a real time with pause system if someone ever does this, which I hope they do, because I think the potential is there. I think it would sell. I think it would be a success, just like Pathfinder Kingmaker was a success for Owlcat. Came out of the blue using an established pen and paper rule set. You'd have to really make a good pen and paper style rule set. Just copy a lot of things from Morrowind, the amounts of skills you can learn, bunch of classes, races, birth signs, all that stuff, and really just get deep with the RPG. And I think if you had a first-person exploration of Morrowind with combat similar to Neverwinter Nights, but in first person, I think it would be fantastic. I would actually, not quite like Neverwinter Nights, because I would have less mobs of enemies. You wouldn't be fighting 5-6 people generally, because in Morrowind, a lot of times it's a one-on-one combat. You're fighting a mud crab, or you're fighting a rat, or you're fighting one bandit in a cave and then going further and there's another bandit. So you wouldn't be fighting like 5 or 6 enemies at a time. So it'd be more maybe 1, 2, 3 enemies type deal, but usually just generally one-on-one type thing. And with a pause system, that could definitely work well. But yeah, I'm hoping someone makes it. I've ranted on here for 20 minutes. I guess I've said all I wanted to say. I don't know what I wanted to say making this, other than just the question, will this game like this ever be made? And my response is, I hope so. So if you've watched, let me know your comments in the comment section. And let me know, do you think this is possible? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's viable in today's gaming market? And thank you for watching. So I'm going to end it here at 20 minutes. This is Jay Dumont. Stay cool, everybody. Thanks for watching. Peace out.